I've been thinking about something that happens to a lot of people at the start of every new year. Now, January comes around, and on the surface, everything looks like a fresh start. We pull out new calendars, there's new energy, and of course, there are new expectations. But then, if you listen closely to people, a lot of them are not actually excited. They're tired, they're unsure, and many of them feel quite stuck. Now, what I find interesting is that this feeling doesn't usually come from doing nothing. Most people who feel stuck have actually been trying. They've been trying hard and they've been working on things. They've been pushing to get things done right. So the problem here is not effort. The problem here is rather something that is deeper than effort. I think a lot of people enter a new year carrying things that they never really dealt with from the past year. Things like unfinished conversations with themselves, decisions that should have been made but then they were delayed, plans that didn't work out the way they had hoped. And instead of stopping to process any or all of that, they just keep moving. Year after year, we keep seeing the same thing happen over and over, and sometimes it feels like a snowball effect. Now, as I indicated in the previous video about ending the year right, most people don't close their years properly. They just roll them over. And when you don't close a year properly, you don't really give yourself the opportunity to start a new one on a clean slate. You're just continuing from where you left off. So early into a new year, you don't feel anything has really changed. So here's the case where January arrives and suddenly there's a lot of pressure. You're under pressure to plan, you're on the edge to set goals for the new year, and you feel some pressure to be motivated just so that you can keep your head up. But on the inside, your mind feels very crowded and clouded. Unfortunately, clarity can't exist when there is a lot of crowding. Here's something I've learned. Feeling stuck usually is not about lacking direction. It's about having too many directions all at once, too many expectations that didn't come from you, too many versions of yourself that you feel you're supposed to become, and too many comparisons. So instead of feeling focused, you're feeling pulled in different directions all at once. And when people feel pulled in too many directions, they do one of two things. They either overplan and burn out early, or they shut down and procrastinate. Now, looking at these two, they look different from the outside, but then they come from the same place. A place of mental overload. This is why motivation doesn't work for many people the way they think it does or should. Because when you look at it, motivation is very useful when your direction is clear. But then when your mind is cluttered, motivation ends up adding some pressure. Because when you take a step back, you may get a dose of motivation at some point, but then for what exactly? So because there's no clear path you're on, all the motivation you can get from watching videos or whatever source serves you may just not hit any spots that will drive you to action. After all, you're not really going anywhere because you're not clear on where you are in the first place. So people start the year by adding more to their plates. They add more goals, they add more routines, and they add more systems in a bid to get it right this time. But then very few people start by removing anything from their plate. Just think about it. What if the reason you feel stuck is not because you need to do more, but then because you need to let go of something? I mean, just think about it. So you may have to let go of certain expectations that no longer fit. You have to let go of goals that came from comparing yourself with others. That's more like apples to oranges. Not the best fit. And you may have to also let go of the idea that every year has to look very impressive. Now, before you ask yourself what you want to build this year, it may be worth asking yourself something simpler. What are you still carrying from last year that you haven't made peace with yet? Because really, when you look at it, anything that is unresolved doesn't stay in the past. They follow you everywhere, even into the present, and they will shape how you show up in your future. And that is not something you want to take lightly. And here's the practical part. You don't need to solve your whole life this month, here in January. I mean, the year is still fresh. You don't need a very perfect plan. What you need is clarity, and clarity comes from honesty. Honesty about what drained you, honesty about what no longer works, honesty about what you're becoming and who you're becoming. Sometimes progress doesn't look like moving forward. It may look like stopping long enough to think clearly again, because what's the point driving through the fog when you're not even sure you're on the road? Talk more of heading the right way. This channel is not about chasing momentum. It's about building a life that feels well aligned. A life where action comes from clarity instead of the pressure we have to live with every day. If you felt stuck at the end of this year, you're not broken. You're just probably carrying way too much. And the work you have to do now is not to rush. Now, you need to clear your space, you need to let go of weights, and be clear on what to move forward with. If this resonated with you, stay with me and let's make this year very meaningful. This channel exists for people who want to do things differently, armed with clarity. I'm Desmond Kafui, and I'll catch you on the next episode.